Just have to join us in, and I'll forego the moment of silence, and we'll just stand for the pledge, if you don't mind, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. When she gets back to her chair, she can call roll.
Daniel,
Here.
Dryden, Hartsfield,
Here.
Caruso,
Here.
Jacobs, Neidert,
Here.
Mabry, Rochelle, Weathers,
Here.
5 present.
Okay, we have a quorum, but we're not going to vote on anything tonight, so
Yes.
tonight's just a, we got, make the record show, Mr. Dryden came in 6 present, so. Like I said earlier, it's just an informative budget meeting tonight, and we'll get started with the presentation. And I think we're going to have Ms. Kinlan go first to get you out of here if you got any ball games to go to.
Thank you for that.
If that's okay.
The budget you have before you is a balanced budget. Remember, food service doesn't make the money, we don't spend the money because we're self-supported. So there are proposed raises in there for next year for all of the food service employees, and Ms. Jessica will present that a little bit later. We are recertifying for CEP next year, which means that we'll be able to feed all the students at no charge. That doesn't mean we'll collect a free reimbursement for all the students, but we get to feed them at no charge. We are planning to recertify for CEP status, which means that we'll be able to continue the program hopefully a little bit longer. And then we've added some more money under food expenses because if you've been to the grocery store lately, food costs are out the roof and we don't really know what to expect with food next year. So does anybody have any questions about my budget?
How's our equipment? And of course, I know we've got several, Summertown and Kaufman got a lot of new stuff, but what about the rest of the schools? Your freezers and all, I mean, is everything still good for another year, or we got a replacement plan in place?
We do. We're replacing a big walk-in freezer this year, this summer at Lawrence County High, and then we also received a grant to partially fund for replacement serving lines at Leoma. I'm hoping that we can go another year without replacing any big equipment, but if it does come up, we'll cover that at that time.
When you said, go ahead, Nikki.
I think I understood you say this, that you're under the free lunch program again next year.
Yes, sir. We're going to participate in the CEP program.
But you said something about reimbursements.
Yes.
You don't know if you're going to get reimbursements. Is that what you said?
No, sir. We won't get reimbursed at the free rate for everybody because the percentage that we're at. So we get a certain percentage of reimbursements at the free rate and a certain percentage at the paid rate. So for every 100 kids we feed next year, we'll probably get reimbursed for about 83% at the free rate and then 17% at the paid rate. I'm still working on those numbers though.
So to make up for that, do you have to, is that something you put in your budget?
It is, and so you'll notice our a la carte the last couple of years have been a lot higher because the kids are not having to pay for their lunches, they have more money to spend in a la carte. So it is a balanced budget in front of you this year.
So
Yes, sir.
make up.
I'm just curious, how much do you figure one meal costs you to produce?
Including food, labor, and expenses?
Food, labor, and everything.
Okay, so we get a certain percentage back, so we estimate that, I have that information. Breakfast for food usually runs us about $1.25, and then our overall food cost is equal to the reimbursement or less. We try to keep it less than that. I have those figures, I just don't have them in front of me, Mr. Nutter.
You said something you budget a little bit extra due to economics. How much is that extra in the percentage wise?
In the food cost, we added $168,000 to that food line item for next year. because we don't know what to expect with like milk prices. They can go up and down each month. And then our food and non-food vendor can do quarterly updates where they can either go up or down on the food as well. And then produce changes from week to week.
Percentage-wise, it's about the average of the economy that's rising.
It really depends on the item.
Okay, all
Like
right.
this month, milk went down a penny per carton. Last month, it went up a penny. So it really just depends from month to month,
I
what
see.
you're looking at.
And don't we give bids out for the previous year?
We do.
Or how does that work?
We did a bid last year for food and non-food. IWC was the awarded vendor. And then in the bid renewals, we can renew for up to 4 years based on the CPI. And so we do the calculations and the figuring to make sure that they stay within that range.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and I don't know that this is necessarily a budget question, but just, I guess our system, our food services system question in general. In the high schools, or at least, you have what, a hot plate, a salad bar, and a hamburger, pizza line? Is that?
So at the high schools, we do the grab-and-go salads, where it's like a chef salad, and they may put like chicken or ham or something like that on there. We have the hot line, and then they do assorted sandwiches every day. And then we also do PB&Js, and then sometimes we'll do additional things like grab-and-go wraps, things that the kids can just pick up.
So there is no more salad bar?
No, sir, we haven't done that since long before COVID.
Okay. Now, is all of that, so when we say free and free lunch, does that apply to any of those options? Or if they go free lunch, they have to go hot bar?
No, sir, they can choose whatever they want. It does have to be a reimbursable meal. So if they go through and they want pizza and the hot line, they have to pay for one of those. So that would be considered all of our, like the pizza would be extra.
Right, okay. But so they can use their free lunch to get the grab-and-go salad or the hot bar or the pizza?
Yes, sir.
One or the other, not one of all three?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And then breakfast is at no charge as well.
Okay.
Now, the teachers still have to pay for their meals because we're not reimbursed, but we haven't increased teacher lunch prices since 2011.
And what is that still?
What is that price?
Under, yeah.
$1.50 for breakfast and $2.75 for lunch. Now, it's possible we may have to go up on meal prices in the near future, depending on what reimbursement rates are, because there's a formula that we have to use according to USDA, but right now we're okay on that.
What is, out
Still
of
a
curiosity, the percentage of teachers who take advantage of that lunch? You know, just rough.
Off the top of my head, you put me on the spot here. I can find out for you.
No, I mean, it's not that, I was just curious, is 80% of our faculty and staff eating school lunch, or?
It depends on the school. We have some that are consistently feeding between 30 to 50 of their teachers each day, which I think is a good number. We encourage our teachers to eat because typically when the teachers eat, we have a higher participation in those schools.
It's a bargain.
$2.75 is not a bad deal. for a
No.
full meal.
It's a bargain. You can tell Mr. Atkins, you have a question?
Ms. Simpson, I know you and I have talked about this before with inflation and the cost of certain items, sausage and biscuit, but you said a penny per carton a while ago. It was milk, juice.
Meal.
So in a week's time, how many cartons are coming in? You don't have to be exact, but I know the trucks run, it seems like every time I'm out there in the morning, there's a
I
truck.
would say 20 to 30,000 cartons per week.
20 to 30.
So we really like when milk prices go down. It helps your budget.
Can I share something funny with you and the rest of the board? In my now 7 years, I've received one email from a high school student who was upset because we took his chocolate milk brand away.
What brand was that?
It was, I guess it was the Purity brand. I mean, we went from one brand to another, and he emailed me a pretty good email. I don't know if I forwarded it to you, Mr. Atkins, or not, but it was a pretty convincing email that he wanted his other chocolate milk back. He's done graduated. That's been a few years ago, but that was, we were just talking about milk. It reminded me of that. I thought that was funny.
Mr. Niner.
I just wanted to make a comment. I want to compliment you on the quality of the food service. You know, and you do your staff the same. be sure, I just, and I'm gonna speak for the whole, I think I can speak for the whole board. Some of the best food I've ever had was at Loretta High School cafeteria. I'm serious.
I'm glad.
We all just gained weight while
We have a lot of very dedicated employees, and they do an amazing job with what they do every day. And they love the babies. They love our students.
Anything further from Kenlon? Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right, Jessica, you're up.
Okay. Mr. Atkins, was there anything you wanted to say before we let off?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to kind of give you a brief overview. The 24-25 budget is a continuation of the commitment of the board, or the board has made to improve salaries for our employees and also the hourly rate for our support staff, and then several other initiatives. But I do want to just speak briefly, and Mrs. Elledge will go through this with a finer tooth comb than what I'm going to do. But this coming year, the 24-25 budget, school system was or is required to invest $861,000 in salaries, and we are actually proposing $1.69 million in salaries to continue to move us towards that $50,000 a year for beginning teachers by 27-28. Mrs. Elledge has done a great job of finding dollars, consolidating, doing the things that I've asked her to help me with. But $1.69 million into the budget for salaries, and then we're also increasing our hourly rate for those hourly employees by 50 cents per hour, which is around $420,000 that we're putting in there. So you can see $2 million just on the surface between teachers and support staff. That has us well above where we're supposed to be as a district timeline set by the state. We're about $1,500 ahead of where the state says we should be right now. So we're working hard to attract people to the Lawrence County school system. We have a lot of good things happening, but we also know that money is one of those attractants. So we're doing that, and also trying to take care of our support staff. We're also looking at differentiating our pay this year into our special education field. That is a concern of ours. There is a lack of folks going into special education, and if you're familiar with education, you know special ed is a part of the school system where we owe it to those students to service them, and we have to have personnel to do that. It's a specialized field that we're looking at. Since 2021, we've seen a considerable increase in hourly and salaries for our employees. Again, Mrs. Elledge will go over that with you. But we're continuing to take the lead of this board of increasing salaries and hourly rates for our folks. Our student focus, a bulk of available funding that was in our budget. Now, Mrs. Elledge and I started looking at this about 18 months ago. What if the state does not fund Tennessee All-Core? We knew ESSER was drying up, but what happens with Tennessee All-Core? So we've lobbied our lawmakers saying this is the best thing that's happened to education, the high dosage, low ratio tutoring. We need to keep that going. We need to continue to fund that. And the state chose not to. $1.4 million of available funding has been directed towards interventionist and tutoring. Almost every one of our principals asked for that in their budget request to continue to do that. We were right around $3 million by ESSER and All-Core, and we're down to 1.4. So it took a significant hit, but it's 1.4 million that we strategically planned for. So we're very proud of that. Still some work to do there. We've also asked for some additional help with our school-based therapists, our social workers. We continue to see an increase in those numbers. That's happening every day, every month. We see more and more students needing that. Our special education needs continue to rise in this county. It seems like every year there's more of that, and it's starting even earlier in the grades. We're seeing more behaviors that require a lot of attention. So we're working on that. And also, one of the largest expenses that we will have in this budget and in a subsequent budget will be for adoption of science and social studies textbooks. This coming year is science textbooks. That will happen in the spring of 25. Yeah, spring of 25, and then we will adopt, and then the following year in the spring of '26, we will start looking at social studies. Two areas that we have not provided our teachers in the most recent high-quality instructional materials has been science and social studies. So you see a good chunk of the budget tonight, and but it's geared towards those two purchases down the road. And then some other things that I think are just more concerning to me, the cost of buses. Mrs. Elledge and I have talked about that. Bus prices continue to go up, and every year we need buses. It seems like as those mileage, years or mileage on those buses, as you saw earlier this year, $148,000 for a bus. I remember when I first got in the office, around $100,000, then we were shocked when it got to $110,000, and now it's $148,000, $150,000 for a bus. And of course, fuel costs continue to be a concern for us. Insurance, both health insurance and system insurance. You know, we have to insure our properties, our cars, our automobiles. That continues to go up. No fault of the district. It's just that the vendor and the way things are, there's more and more needs that companies are having to cover, and so we see a slight increase there. One thing that I'm very proud of is the capital outlay projects. I think the last several years, you could walk around and take a look at a lot of the great work that the board has approved, parking lots, roofs, restrooms. We still got things to do, and this budget also reflects our commitment to continue to improve our facilities. So Mrs. Elledge will go over all of this in a little more detail, but I just wanted to paint with a broad brush to kind of tell you what we're doing, why we're doing it, and fulfill what the board has asked me to do. That's increase salaries, hourly rates, and do a lot of capital projects. So thank you.
Couple of questions before Mr. Atkins, if you don't mind, before Jessica gets started. On that system insurance, how often do we bid that out?
We haven't bid it in a while. The company that we currently use, I would say, is probably the easiest and best to work with when it comes to the issues that we face in a school system, a damaged building, a damaged this, that they're very good at allowing us a lot of freedom to expedite the order or expedite the claim and get that covered pretty quickly. That's been a blessing for us.
So, but, I mean,
We haven't bid it in, I don't know how long.
you say that, but have you worked with any other company?
We have in the past.
You have, or?
We have in the past, yeah.
Okay.
One of the reasons I think the decision was made to go back to this company.
Who is that company?
Tennessee Risk Management Trust is who we're currently with under a state insurance pool. There's lots of districts that work within. In the past, when we did put it out for bid and work with locals, it was Elliott and Associates here in Lawrenceburg, to which they had a third party. I think Montgomery Insurance was the actual vendor that they worked with, but Elliott was our direct local vendor.
Okay. Elliott was the underwriters representing
Yes.
another company, but this Tennessee Risk Management is an insurance company that's built specifically for the school
for
system type
state
deal.
schools, for school systems, yes.
Okay.
And actually in Tennessee Code Annotated, if you're within that state insurance pool, you are not required by law to bid. Outside of that, you are required to put those things out for bid.
And then, Mr. Atkins, we had talked about them several times through several different meetings through the years, and I know we were able to utilize COVID money, ESSER dollars, to do a lot of the renovation projects. That really saved us with roofing jobs that we had to do throughout the system. But we had asked you a while back to build us basically a maintenance PM plan for those, so that in 10 years, the system and whoever may be following us is not looking at having to replace 5 roofs all in the same year. Is that something you're still working on? Have we got that game plan put together?
No, we're still working on it, but what we have been able to do is, okay, we put a roof on this year and project out when that would need to be replaced. Same way as a parking lot, we've done that. We still have a couple of roofs that we're going to have to replace, but that process is ongoing. Mr. Tucker manages that and has it spelled out kind of how that would look for somebody else who comes in. We could hand that to them and say, this should be your future budgeting projects, what you should be thinking about. But we're working on that.
Thank you.
And Mr. Atkins, could you briefly explain how that differential pay for special ed is going to work?
So right now, it is focused on special education teachers, those who are in the classroom working with their kids, and also the UDL teacher, speech pathology. All of those are a couple of our physical therapy assistants that we pay, a few of our occupational therapists that we pay. I think we have 3 of those. If they're working with our more challenging students, servicing those students, they would be set aside as special education and differentiate their pay. Within the school, the UDL setting, the educational assistants who are in there working with those students, that's the group that we're differentiating. So you have your special education resource teacher or resource assistant, and then you have a UDL where the needs are greater of those students, and it does require a different level of work, a different level of commitment to those students, and we wanted to differentiate between those two. It's about 50 cents more for a UDL assistant. I think maybe it's 25 cents.
That's 50 cents.
50 cents difference in that UDL classroom teacher. And if you know anybody that works in a UDL setting, you can talk to them and they can explain some of the challenges that they face there. We wanted to begin attracting more people into that area.
Does that amount to a little higher pay for the teachers in those areas?
It will. I think it's about $700 a year for a UDL assistant, and it's around $1,000 for a teacher at the end of the year. It's our first step into differentiating into a problem area or a challenging area or high demand area.
Have we noticed anybody's willing to move into those slots because of that?
We haven't yet. I think as we put that information out, there may be a few, but that's challenging work, and it's it takes its toll on you in several ways. Very physical, and then there's some environmental concerns with that.
Any further questions?
Does that answer, Mr. Knight?
Yes.
So I'll pop this first slide up here and just begin to talk around all of our combined budgets. And I had this conversation with Mr. Nodder. It's been months ago now, but I was telling Mr. Atkins this afternoon, when I first started in the 2008-2009 school year was the first budget that I put together. And the budgets that were presented that night were $39 million. So you can see right there, this upcoming year in 24-25, we've more than doubled that. So combined budgets, all combined tonight, that we're going to present to you is a tune of about $82.1 million. And you can see there, just based on the different colors, the largest portion of that is the general purpose budget. And most of that is state funding. We'll go deeper into that in just a bit, but $71.9 million. And then we have our federal project budgets, our school nutrition that you just heard Ms. Simpson present, and our extended day program, which we have five schools, I believe, that participate in the extended school day program before and after school. So that is $147,000. So just some of the goals that we've looked at continuing to do. We've used this budget as an educational spending plan, really designed to align to all of these goals, continuing, like Mr. Atkins said earlier, almost all of our principals ask for a continuation of those tutoring and intervention work in the schools, so we wanted to try to honor that as best we could. Academic learning, instructional supports, social emotional learning, and then employee compensation and retention. So we really tried to line this budget up with those types of requests that have come in. So the strategic goals of the system: early literacy, college and career readiness, and supporting the whole child. So that really drove this budget, trying to put everything into one of those buckets. And then we expected, you guys have heard this time and time again from us, we've expected ESSER funding to be going away. For the last 3 years, we've had almost $25 million, $24.2 million in additional funds that's ending as of September the 30th. So we have expected that. We had a lot of personnel within that. But we communicated up front that these are only temporary dollars. We had employees sign contracts. Principals really made that clear in their buildings that these dollars were going away. So we prepared accordingly for that. So of our general purpose revenues, I'll focus there for the majority of the slides here. Of our GP revenue dollars, the majority of that is made up of state dollars that we receive through the TISA formula. You know, years ago it was BEP, Basic Education Program. The last 2 years now it's been TISA. There in the blue, $56.4 million of this $71 million budget is made up of those state dollars. And then you can see there in the yellow, that's our property tax number that we anticipate receiving locally from the County Commission. The sales tax number there in the green, just shy of a little over $8 million. And then some other local revenues, dollars we receive from some different vendors and collections, bus advertising. That was something that the board put in place a few years ago that we've been seeing some dollars from. So that makes the state of Tennessee, TISA dollars makes up the majority of our general purpose dollars, but then the other, probably about 10 to 20%, about 20% comes from the local dollars as well. So this just goes a little bit more in depth about that same little slide, that circle you saw there. The one thing I would want to point out to you is the sales tax numbers. This budget that's proposed in front of you tonight does include a increase to sales tax revenues by $425,000. So that is something that we will go to the County Commission and we will request, and it would increase the maintenance of effort, meaning that if they gave us this $425,000 this year, they would have to continue to give that to us year after year after year. So that is something that I want to make sure you guys are aware of and can keep in mind.
How do you feel about that, Mr. Acker?
I began speaking with County Executive Morgan in the fall, and we've met several times this spring. I feel really good about it. He knows where we stand, and we didn't just spring it on him last minute. He's had time to prep for it as well, and feel good.
So the other thing that we always, which really drives our local sales tax dollars, really drives a lot of things that we kind of do. I want to put in parentheses kind of outside of the budget, because we are able to come back to you guys with a list of capital projects a lot of the times, or there may be something unforeseen that we were not anticipating during the budget year that we come back to you and go, oh, we need to add this roof. We've had an emergency roof repair or an emergency HVAC repair that we've had to do. And we come back to you and guys and say, oh, we want to use excess sales tax dollars. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 8 years of budget data there of what you see in yellow is the budget dollars of sales tax revenues that we've budgeted to receive. And then the blue on the left side of that yellow bar each year is what we've actually received above budget. So that number continues to come in above budget. Once again, going back to maintenance of effort, if we went to the County Commission and we said, oh, we'd like for you to give us every bit of that blue, well, that locks them in. And then they're going to have to continue to give us that going forward. So we did increase by the 4 1/4 for this school year. And that would increase our budget in sales tax revenues from 7.6 million to a little more than $8 million for the 24-25 school year. I just always think that's an interesting slide to see there of how much we collect above and beyond sales tax revenues that we really can't budget for, but we do receive those dollars. So we're thankful to receive those dollars. So the other portion of our revenues, going back to TISA, which makes up about 80% of this budget, the base allocation, I know you guys have seen presentations in the past about how TISA is funded. The funding calculation, the base allocation for all students is $7,075. Last year, 23-24, this current school year, I believe it was $6,860. So that was an increase. And included in that number is the $125 million that the governor has given for teacher salary increases. So that's what's really driven that $7,075 increase there. And you can see based on our April estimate that we've received from the state, we're anticipating being funded on 6,674 students, which actually equates out to 47.2 million. And then the other components of the funding calculation, the weights that include economically disadvantaged students, concentrated poverty, sparse, and unique learning needs. That generated $13.5 million based on the April estimate. Direct funding includes K-3 literacy, 4th grade tutoring, and CTE dollars, and that generated $4.4 million. And then the outcomes calculations actually are kind of in arrears, if you will. We receive those dollars later into the fall of the school year. This current year, we're anticipating receiving we did receive this current year $635,000. If things trend the same way, hopefully that will only increase. But for this year, we have received $635,000, which those dollars, keep that number in mind, because that's part of what's really going to drive our work with our Lawrence County All-Corps as we move forward with the TN All-Corps money going away. So here's the actual formula in spreadsheet form. I just did a screenshot of it so you guys could kind of see what that actually looks like. This is what we received from the state that tells us, hey, this is the money that you can anticipate. So you see up there at the top, the base, $7,075 and the number of students, and there's a calculation that tells you what we can anticipate from a funding, from a dollar standpoint. Same with the weights and the direct. So over here on the right side of the screen, you can see based on the $65.1 million of total funding that we would receive, 9.1 of that is required to be local, and 55.9 is from the state. So those are the dollars that we are budgeting from the state. And then right down below that, you see that FY24 district maintenance of effort. That $12.9 million is actually what we have received and the county has agreed to give us in maintenance of effort for this current school year. So that's the amount that the county is currently locked into. We're asking for another $425,000 on top of that.
So is that, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
So staying on that right hand of the page chart, the local at 9 million.
That's all they're required to do by law.
But so this 12.9 is going to go in place of that 9 million.
Correct.
That 9 is what's required, but what we're
Yes.
actually getting is the 12.
Yes. Now,
Okay.
they are locked into the 12.9.
So this is, they're locked in, they have to do that. The 12.9?
Yes, the 12.9. They are locked in because they have given us that for the 23-24 school year. So they can never go back on that 12.9 unless we had a massive reduction of student enrollment or something like that.
Okay, so in the formula, what you're saying is at the 60, with the base and the weight and the direct, that 65 million, the formula by law states that they have to do 9 million.
Yes.
But we've got them locked in, or they're locked in and giving us 12.
Yes. Now
So,
let-
and that's totaling what we're receiving at 55.
So our budget is 55.9 from the state, and then the 12.9 plus the 4 1/4 that we're asking for, above and beyond that 12.9.
Okay.
Let's say for kicks and giggles, that local number there said 13 million. They would have to ante up, if you will, and give us $13 million rather than 12.9.
And that brings us up to a total of what?
If I go back, sorry, I'll
It's
flip back
not-
real quick.
Is it all the way back at the 8?
Right here. The 8 plus the 4.9, that's your local, that's your sales tax and your property tax dollars.
Together?
Yes.
Okay. And then everything that's on this screen right here, is that the $83 million budget that?
But this is only the general purpose budget, what you see on this screen right here. The 82 makes up general purpose, federal, school nutrition, and the extended school day budgets.
Okay.
And I will say, on the slide that we were just on, we're very blessed in Lawrence County to have that kind of commitment. I hear from other directors where that's not the case. And so I'm always mindful of our county commission and their support for education. I think when I get an opportunity, I thank them, and I asked other folks to thank them as well. They have committed to education in Lawrence County.
So being in the past with the county commissioners, Morgan is feeling comfortable about giving us that extra money, but it still has to go through the budget committee, through the commissioner. So in the past, they haven't been so generous of giving us that money. Have we got a plan B for when they have, if they do not? Or we're counting on them to approve?
Well, I think we would have a Plan B. It might just be a long-term Plan B. It may be this time next year that we were executing some of those cutbacks and doing some other things. But it's possible it would be this year, but we feel good about what we've negotiated with County Executive Morgan and his team. We'll actually be going down sometime this month to present this to them and share our thoughts with them.
One last question for me, Chairman Caruso.
Go ahead.
Going all the way back, Jessica, back up, I guess, to the front. When we talked about losing the ESSER dollars and we were prepared, yeah, right there, prepared accordingly. How many, I know you've already communicated to us in our, how many positions are we looking at having terminated due to this?
I have that, I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head. I have the numbers of what we currently are funding and what we're tentatively going to fund in a later slide.
Okay.
I just don't remember them off the
Thank
cuff.
you. We'll wait till we get there.
Okay.
Please communicate when you go to that meeting.
I will.
When everybody goes.
So, Mr. Caruso, the thing here, and I'll go back to this sales tax revenue collections, because the yellow there, you can see that that budgeted amount is when we have gone back to the commission and asked for an increase in maintenance of effort, to which you can see there, they have honored that over the years, over many years now. I think we had 1 year that everything kind of stayed stagnant, probably that COVID year.
Much.
Yeah.
Those numbers are pretty interesting. I'm sorry to keep derailing.
No, you're
but
fine.
Go back to those slides. Like, you see from 17 all the way to 21, well, really all the way to 22, we're pretty consistent right around the 5 million mark in what we're asking for. But then 23 and 24, I mean, you know, there's significant change between 22 to the last 2 years. Interesting.
So that was kind of the synopsis of the revenue side of things. How do we spend our money? We'll move to the expenditure side if there are no other questions on the revenues. So I always pop this slide up here because I always feel like it really speaks volumes. For every dollar that we spend in the district, where does our dollar go? 82 cents of every dollar goes to salary and benefits in the green. And then you can see in the red there, contracted services, supplies and materials, other charges, which that makes up, the biggest portion of the other charges makes up our property, auto, work comp and liability insurances, equipment, capital projects, and then payment to the debt service. So you can see there, the biggest portion of it's in our people. So in talking people and staffing, we do have some additional staffing requests that's proposed within this budget. We are asking for, Mr. Atkins, you may want to speak to some of these positions if you would like.
So our Dean of Students, we started that a few years ago, and we have made our way down now to 2 K-8 schools remain, and then 2 K-5 schools remain. So this year, we're asking to address the needs of the K-8 schools at New Prospect and Etheridge to bring in deans to have in those buildings to help and train to be an administrator. We're looking at an additional assistant principal at E.O. Kaufman. E.O. Kaufman is a unique setup, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I think that building has more 6th, 7th, and 8th graders than our other schools. I'd have to go back. It may just be slightly different, but it's that's a challenging age, and to have 600 or so in a building is work. And we've done some work over there addressing behaviors, but we do need to do some work addressing the academics, and this is one way to do that. And so we're looking at adding that. We're also adding an IT position at Lawrence County High School, working with TCAT. I think that is the first step in working with TCAT to look at maybe expanding that into our other schools in time. School-based therapist, possible social worker, behavior support teachers, that's back to our needs in those special ed classrooms. We're seeing more and more of that. A support assistant in those classrooms, speech pathology, and also maybe a truancy officer. That is something that we have, but we've piled more on that person. Truancy is a problem, and it's become a problem post-COVID more so than pre-COVID. And so looking at the possibility in time of putting that position in play to focus solely on making sure we're getting kids to school. I was at a school not long ago meeting with 6th grade teachers, and they were talking about a student who just misses and misses and misses, and it's challenging for our teachers. So that's those areas that we're looking at. The special ed world, when we have a student that needs to be placed in an alternative type setting, at one time you could reach out to those vendors and say, we have a student, we would like to send them to you, and we'll pay for that. They would take those students. But as that population has grown and that demand is greater, they are selective in who they take. And so sometimes our students need some additional supports that we just can't provide. We just can't provide those supports. But you're at the mercy of those vendors. So we're looking at maybe trying to address some of that in district, which is a significant savings to us if we can make this happen. I'm happy to answer any questions on it.
I got a question. At E.O. Kaufman, how many assistant principals will there be there then?
So if this passes, you would have a principal and 2 assistants, and we would eliminate the dean program at Kaufman. We wouldn't have that there.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at the blue. These positions will be funded with the increase of the maintenance effort.
Yes.
That's great. I can see those are definitely great needs. I'm concerned about the staff people or the positions that are going to be eliminated as far, well, not eliminated necessarily. The funding is being, no longer going to be coming to us. What will we be able to maintain some of those folks in the system?
Well, I don't know what the principals have at their individual schools, but I do know many of them have made it clear there are folks that receive those letters that they would like to hire into some of the positions that they have open. We have retirees, some of the positions that will be cut, though some positions will remain, that they may move people in and out of there. Each principal is approaching that differently in their building. So of the 42 letters, I think, you may have half of those that stay on in some capacity. I just don't know the number from each principal. We just started posting today, Mr. Dryden, but I can get some information once we kind of,
that's fine.
that it does settle a little bit.
Actually, as you were talking, I was thinking hopefully at least 50% of them can still maintain a position.
And that's just my guess based on listening to the folks talk in the buildings, but it could be less than that, but I think they do want to try to grab a few of those folks and keep them. They've had 2 or 3 years looking at them. They know what they're capable of, and they've proven themselves, and the principals would like to keep them on board if they could.
Go ahead, John.
How many dean of student positions do we currently have?
Let's see, we have, let me start on the south end. South Lawrence, Leoma, E.O. Kaufman.
Loretta High School does not?
Loretta, the high schools do not.
High schools do not have?
No.
Okay.
Ingram Sal and Summertown Elementary.
So those are the schools that have a dean of student.
Have a dean of students, and
And
we've,
D.O. Kaufman, you're proposing to eliminate that and roll that into
yes,
principal?
Yes.
That was going to lead into my next question, because, when you started that, just briefly, what is your feel on the success of this? And, one of my main concerns when you brought this up, I've always been in support of this, but I've always been concerned that we have somebody sitting in this role for 2 years or 3 years, so can you just give a brief synopsis of, hey, this is running well, and the goal is after, if they've been successful in this role for 2 years, we're going to roll them into that role into, like you're doing at Kaufman, or just?
well, I think a lot of that would really depend on where our enrollment shakes out over time. What does the alignment in the system look like after we have a study done and performed to kind of give us a better understanding? But as far as the success of the deans, Friday we interviewed for the open assistant principal at E.O. Kaufman. The current AP is retiring, so we had an opening. And we asked that all of our deans interview. And they did extremely well in there. And a few of them were honest and said, I need more time. We have a couple that probably could learn on the job a lot faster after having served as a dean. They could step into an AP role. But I think most of them would still tell you they have some learning to do, and that's fine. We all do in those positions. But overall, I think it's been successful. Listening to the deans talk, they would tell you that having that exposure, I know one of them, Summertown Elementary, said the principal there has put them to work at everything, do everything. South Lawrence has done that. Kaufman has been primarily discipline. With that many middle school kids, that has been the focus there. But the other 2 positions that we're looking at adding are 2 quality administrators as well that can coach these folks and help them be ready when that time comes. I'd say overall it's been successful, Mr. James.
Nikki?
Yep, a question again on how many students, do y'all know estimate how many students are going to be at Kaufman this year?
Kaufman will have maybe, according to Mr. Long on Friday, his numbers are indicating 624, I think's what he told me, 6 through 8, which is a lot of middle school kids. Be one of our larger, will probably be our second largest school behind Lawrence County.
And so, one principal and 2 assistants. Summertown High School, how many students are there now?
Summertown High School, once we split it from 712, Summertown High School might be It might be under 400 now.
How many?
Nah, maybe a little over 400.
How many assistant principals do they have?
They have a main principal and 2 assistants.
What about the 7th and 8th grade?
They have a principal, and we have a person placed there from the special ed department who somewhat serving in an administrative role, but primarily to manage a behavior challenge that we have there. They have about 200 students.
I got one more question. When you, how did you decide where to put a dean? Just out of curiosity, let me ask you this a little bit. Do you put a dean at a school where there may be more of a discipline problem to train them there, or do you just, how do you go about doing that?
I think initially that was the setup. I think it was federally funded, a title funding, and it began at Ingram Sal, and then it moved to E.O. Kaufman, and then we started looking at enrollment numbers and based that on enrollment. We started at the high end and worked our way down. We can adjust those enrollment numbers every year to justify having a dean, and so that's kind of where we are with the 2 K-8 schools because of the afternoon activities, the things that go on in a middle school, a K-8 and a middle school, a lot of after hours, and so we wanted to fill that first. But we did have K-5s with a high population that we filled ahead of them because they had a higher population need or greater population, and so we put the need there. We would address that need there.
So I guess I understand you to say that a dean is put more where the enrollment numbers are up rather than where the discipline probably be.
That has been kind of the practice, but it didn't originally start that way. But it has been since I've been in it to address. If you have high numbers, we've been putting a dean there, and then we've been working our way down to those. But we excluded the high schools on the front end. They were not eligible for a dean to begin with. They already had a principal and 2 administrators, and so we did not address that.
And that dean position is just, they're basically training to become a principal,
That's
correct?
right. That's right. Yeah. And the principals do a great job with them. Every one of them mentioned Friday about their principals pushing them, exposing them to just about, if it walks through the door, they've exposed them to it. Very complimentary of the program. Does that answer your question, Ms. Hartsfield, on the deans, how we do that?
Okay. So the next slide kind of talks about we had multiple positions within some other funding sources, whether it being ESSER dollars that are going away, some innovative model school grant that we've received, that we've made commitments to throughout that grant, or some federally funded positions that we're asking to move over into GP. So all of these positions here listed, we're requesting being moved over into our general purpose budget, but these are not new positions, they were just previously funded out of another source. The innovative school models positions, 3 of those are career coaches, and 1 is a cosmetology teacher at Loretta High School that we added last year through that grant. There's an agreement, it's a 4-year grant. There's an agreement there that we will fund 25% of that out of the general purpose budget, the other 75% being still out of that innovative models. Next year it become a 50-50 split, and then the next year it become 75 general purpose, 25 innovative schools, to help us with the sustainability of those positions. So there are 3 positions there: the Summertown High School engineering, and then a school-based therapist and social worker that were funded out of ESSER dollars this year, that we're asking to 100% fund out of the general purpose budget for this upcoming year.
Where I refute the very first statement, Summertown does not have an engineering position.
It may not be engineering, but Mr. Is it Blackwood? I think that's the position that we have him in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He came from the elementary school. This is his first year over there, and he's doing the STEM, maybe not truly like engineering, but he's involved in that. I believe that's Mr. Blackwood.
Yes, that is who that
Yeah,
is
We
the
used to
name.
have,
Yeah. Mrs. Johnson?
Mrs. Johnson.
Yeah.
And when she left, it went away, and I didn't,
Yes.
so
Yes,
Mr. Black was back
yes,
in there.
yes.
So that is an increase to our general purpose budget of approximately $420,000. So this is a slide, Mr. Dryden, and Mr. Caruso, some of the questions that you guys have asked around the all-core tutoring. So since the 21-22 school year, the system has been participating in the state of Tennessee all-core tutoring. These funds end on June 30th. So just like these ESSER dollars, this TN all-core dollar is going away also. So we have funded as a district through between the all-core and the ESSER dollars over $3 million annually toward this type of work. And you can see there I've listed the number of positions that we currently have. Currently in the system we have 17 full-time interventionists, 19 teachers, 7 of which are full-time, 12 are part-time, 23 educational assistants. And then we have just some of our very own teachers. Some of them may be part-time, retired teachers, but we have before and after school tutoring. And as I've said before, we wanted to maintain that based on requests that principals have given us, but we did not feel that we could fully fund this. So we took that outcomes dollar amount within that TISA formula, the 630-something thousand that I was referring to earlier. We took those dollars and we took another $800,000 on top of that out of this formula and said, let's try to make this work. So we went from about $3 million to $1.4 million within this budget to try to continue this work. So we took, in all of those discussions, we looked at an allocation based on every school's K-3 enrollment and the number of students that they tutored for this current school year, the 23-24 school year, and we determined an allocation, a way of making it fair. And we provided each school X number of dollars of that $1.4 million. And then we allowed each school to determine what works best in their building. Does it work for their schedule to have a full-time teacher? Does it work for their schedule to have a part-time retired teacher? Does it work? What's best within your building? So they have communicated those things back to us. And so tentatively, what we're looking at is going to 13 full-time teachers or interventionists, about 13 part-time teachers, and then still having some dollars for each school to provide before and after school tutoring. So I know that's a lot on a screen there, but.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I will say, you heard us say earlier, September 30th, that's when the funds have to be spent. The June 30th is there's no continuation of the funds. You have to have them spent by the 30th. And so we've made it very clear, we don't want to send any money back.
Are there any questions on that slide? I know that probably is a lot of information thrown at you there.
This is the slide that shows how many positions will be eliminated and then how many we're going to
Yes,
Kind of gives you an idea.
yes.
And I'd say, Mr. Daniel, and the board, I think pre-COVID, every principal in the district would be pleased to have received a certain amount of money to do this. I think COVID kind of spoiled us a little bit because they threw a lot of money at us and temporarily to address that learning loss. And it was probably the most effective thing that the state and the federal government has done for education, but they did not continue to fund it. And I think that's the sad part of this, but we feel good about it, putting some money in the hands of our principals and letting them manage it. And they've done a really good job of that the last several years.
Just comment, I know you cleared up on it. So there's $1.4 million and it's to be divided equally between each school?
If-
How's that, like you got 13 full-time teachers, 13 part-time teachers, and then you don't know about the tutoring. How's it?
It's not divided equally. Some of our schools had more tutoring that they had implemented during the time of post-COVID. So it's not an equal breakdown that everybody gets this amount. It's based on the number of students that were participating in their tutoring program, and we based it off that. So it's not just take it and divide it by the schools and here's your money. Some schools might get a unit and a half. A unit is about an $80,000 job. A half is $40,000. So they might get a unit and a half. They might get $120,000, and based on their tutoring and what they've done, they might get another $60,000 or $70,000 in tutoring. Just throwing those numbers out there. Whereas another school might only have a half unit. So they might get $40,000 to pay for a teacher and then $70,000 for tutoring or something like that. So it varies based on the school's past involvement these last 3 years. We did not want to penalize a school that has taken this and ran with it and had some success, though everybody was penalized in a sense that the money was gone. We did not want to penalize that by saying, okay, let's just divide it and give everybody the same. Because some schools are not the same. They're not, across the board, they're not the same.
So each school knows exactly what
They've already received those
they know what
allocations. Yeah.
they're playing with.
They know what they have.
Money.
Yeah.
So on the certified salary increase, I'm going to move away from positions and then kind of talk about salary increases. So for certified salary, you guys know, you've heard this, Governor Lee passed $125 million within the budget to add to teacher salaries across the state. So that little screenshot there that's on the bottom of this slide, that comes through that TISA formula every month. It tells us of that $125 million, this is the amount Lawrence County Schools that you have to give to what they call existing educators, $861,677.64. So that's what we are required to do. We have within this budget 586 employees who are paid on a certified teacher system-wide salary schedule. So our proposed salary increase is well above that $861,000 to the tune of $1.69 million. So double the required amount that we have to do. So this just kind of goes on more in depth of that salary increase. What we're proposing is to add $2,000 to the beginning salary scale. Actually add $2,000 to every step of our existing salary scale. So right now, 23-24 school year, we are at $44,040. So for a new beginning teacher, and pending that approval, we would be at $46,040. And I kind of provided there for you where we have to go as we project moving forward. This year, for the 24-25 year, we have to be at $44,500 based on state law. Next year, 25-26, we have to be at $47,000, and then the following year is when we have to be at that $50,000 mark for the 26-27 school year. So we're making steps toward that. We feel good about being a little over $1,500 over where we're required to be. So all of these salary increases, additional staff that we've requested, staff moving from one funding source into the general purpose budget, all of those things are a cost to the Lawrence County School System of $4.18 million. So we're proposing to add that much additional into our staff salaries as we move forward. So on the non-certified salary increase, as you heard Mr. Atkins say earlier, we are requesting an hourly rate of 50 cents an hour across all steps, If you recall, last year, we added the additional steps to kind of continue to differentiate from a beginning bus driver to a 25 year veteran bus driver. So we're proposing to add 50 cents an hour to each one of those steps. So it includes bus attendants, bus drivers. This is not an exhaustive list, but we're to kind of put some of those groups on there. The total cost to do that is about $420,000.
Kirk's got a question.
Yes, sir.
I apologize for leaving for a minute.
No,
Can you
you're
go back
fine.
to the previous screen?
Right here?
And why does the email I've got say 3,000 is added to the beginning of salary scale, and that says 2,000?
That, probably the email that you have was, I had not finalized this proposal.
Oh.
We added 3,000 last year, and I had made a typo and just not gone in and
Okay.
updated that. Mr. Atkins and I talked about that this morning. He caught my boo-boo. So I apologize.
Well, I mean, I saw that too, and it was not what I
Yeah.
remember reading.
Yeah, no.
And you
We
said-
did 3,000 last year, and then this year we're proposing to do 2,000.
And you said you just sent this update?
This was just added today,
And
yes.
you sent it today? When did you send it?
This is loaded in a Google Drive. I loaded it probably about 4:30 this afternoon.
Okay.
Yes.
Jessica, so we just last year went up to, the scale stopping at 20, then we raised it to 25.
Yeah, we did two things last year. We added $3,000 to the beginning teacher scale, and we added those steps for a teacher. It stepped out at 20 prior to, and we added steps 21 to 25.
So, and then this year you're looking at putting 2,000 on every step.
Every step.
Now, how many, you got a slide that shows, what are those steps? Beginning 5, 10, 15, 20, 25?
Well, it's not in the slide deck, but I do have an entire budget proposal document that, toward the end of the document, right here, will show you.
Oh, so is there 2,000 on every year?
Every step had a $2,000. So.
Well, is a step a year?
Yes.
No, but there's a step for every, I mean, what I'm seeing here, yeah, every year.
So someone
steps.
with a master's degree and 25 years of experience, 23, 24, they made $65,589. Next year, they're going to receive $67,589.
Okay, so the step is more left to right, or is the step
So
from top to bottom?
top to bottom based on degree. So left to right, you've got a bachelor's degree.
Right, is their education level?
Yes, their educational
I guess
level.
what I'm asking is, this shows every year of service is a step.
Yes,
So
every
every
200.
teacher is getting $2,000 added to their salary this year.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
And one thing we did last year is on the BS Plus is $500 automatically from year to year. If we did not give any raises, they automatically step up $500. But as you get into the master's all the way over to the doctorate, I think that picks up at $750 every year. So if there wasn't a raise, and John Daniel was year 5, goes to 6, depending on his degree, he's $500 or $700 increase. That wasn't always the case. Sadly, there was a year when you went from year 2 to 3 and you only got $10. We addressed that last year.
So for anyone who hasn't stepped out, if you have a bachelor's degree, you'll receive a $500 step increase plus $2,000. Now, if you're at the top, if you're at step 25, $2,000 is what you would
And
receive.
correct me if I'm wrong, last year, we had employees who were at 25, 27 years. They stepped out 7 years ago.
Mhm.
But, so now they not only got 2,000, they got $2,000 for every year that, I mean, we back, not necessarily back pay them, but. Okay.
We immediately moved them from step 20, which was the top of the step out,
Yep.
to step 25. We immediately made that move at that point.
Yeah.
But 25 was as far as they would go.
Now, we're still exploring future raising that.
Yeah, I think that is something, once we meet this $50,000 and we're not having that hanging over us as much as we are right now, then definitely. I think that's something we'd like to maybe do year 26. You know, like that. Not 5 years like we did last year, but a year, and see if that can build that up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nikki.
Question. I make $10,000, just give you a figure. At 20 years, now at 25 years, what do I make?
Well,
What do y'all talk
So-
about that?
so I'm just going to look at this step 20, the BS degree.
Okay.
Let's say that last year you were at $56,000. And Ms. Ellich, I'll do this wrong, you jump in.
You're good.
Last year you maxed out at $56,000. When we added those steps all the way down to 25, you're around what?
It'd be $2,500.
$2,500. Last year, you got that per step. You don't get that this year, but last year, you may have, if you made $10,000 and we took you all the way to the max, you might have made $15,000, $16,000, $17,000. And some of our teachers last year did see a nice bump in their annual salary because of that. Not as much this year. It won't be that much this year, but it was last year by adding those years.
Go ahead, Bruce.
I think this question's for Jessica. Down at the bottom there, it's got 3 stars, and then the base salary does not include career ladder. Do we still have career ladder folks?
We do. There are few.
How many?
I think we probably have, I'd say 65 to 70.
I'm surprised that there's,
I wouldn't think it was that many.
I didn't know I wouldn't have thought there was that many.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're probably maxed out on all these, whatever their educational thing, they would be most of them, I would assume.
I would assume the same, yes.
So there's still some career ladder teachers that are on like 12 or 11-month contracts, 12-month contracts.
I don't think you would have any that would be on a 12-month contract. Maybe some principals.
11.
You may have some principals that are still on career ladder.
Yeah, but I bet that's just maybe 1 or 2, maybe.
Yeah,
Administrators.
yeah. Yeah.
That's
That number kind of
Keeps shrinking.
It keeps shrinking. It keeps shrinking. Yeah, so the state continues to give us career ladder dollars, but that revenue amount continues to shrink each year because obviously we have fewer teachers that we have to pay in career ladder as well. So. And all of this, guys, I'll email it out to you directly so you'll have it, but all of these salary schedules will be in that board packet as well. So you can take a look at them and study them as you work through this. All right, so I think we covered that slide on the 50 cent per hour pay raise for support staff. Mr. Atkins kind of spoke to this earlier about our special education department struggling to fully staff. If you recall, you guys approved a contract vendor where we contracted with some teachers this previous year just to put people in our special education department. So we're looking at creating $1,000 hard to staff stipend for our special education teachers, and then creating that differentiation that he spoke to between those UDL special education assistants of an additional 50 cents per hour. So those particular positions would get the 50 cent per hour that we were referring to here on this slide, and they would get another additional 50 cents for a total of $1 an hour salary increase for that group. Any questions around that? So I wanted to put this on here so you can kind of see, going back to salary increases, kind of the trends of what we have done. I've got 3 different colors there based on a teacher's degree and possibly steps, just some scenarios of what we've done as a district. For someone that's a beginning teacher in 1920, we were somewhere, I don't have it plotted there, the actual dollar amount, but we were somewhere in the mid-30s in 1920. And then we've taken steps in 24-25 to get just above that $45,000, that $46,000 mark. And then that EDS, you see that trend there, how that trend goes much higher with that EDS. That's the addition of those steps 21 to 25 that really had driven that number up. So I think those are interesting to see. And then the same with our support staff. Prior to the 22-23 school year, we really paid all of our support the same. Whether you were a beginning bus driver or whether you were a 25-year veteran bus driver, you received the same salary, with the caveat of we paid you a longevity check, once a year longevity check. We did away with that longevity and really tried to put those dollars, and even more so, into differentiating salaries for people who have been with us as a thank you. So you can kind of see those numbers there. The different colors are, and the plot doesn't really show you this, but the different colors are the different years of experience. So that green for a bus driver is a bus driver that has 25 plus years of experience. You can see where they were around the mid-11,000 annual salary, and they've climbed all the way up to almost $16,000 as a bus driver. That number's still not where we want it to be, but I do feel like we're making trends to grow that along the way. Strikers, you want to talk to this one?
So last year, we did a lot of work in our athletic budget of addressing additional staff, putting more eyes out there working and supervising kids. And I think that's been well received, and coaches have been appreciative of that. But one of the things that we tabled last year was what we call the distribution model. And after spending about a year looking at this, I think we've worked out some of the kinks. Now, there may be a few things that pop up from time to time, but overall, we are taking the same amount of money that's already there, and we're giving it to the coaches and the athletic directors to use in a different format. So previously, if you had a head coach who made 12%, they made 12%. That was it. The distribution model allows them to look at their overall percentage for a sport, say football. Football has 77 percentage points, making up $35,000, whatever that is. The AD and the principal and the coach can use that $35,000 differently if they choose to. They can have 35 people out there making $1,000 if they wanted to. That's really left to them. They cannot exceed the amount that the board has already budgeted and approved, but they can reassess how they want to do it. They want to hire a new football coach and pay that football coach 15% or 18%. They can. They're just going to pay less to someone else on that staff because the percentage points and the dollar amount are not increasing. They're the same. It just gives them a little more freedom to use their dollars in a way to attract more people, to get more help, but it puts the responsibility on the AD, the principal, and the coach to manage that. We've heard from several schools. We even had a Google Meet with them, explained it, asked them what we could do differently, and all were in favor of exploring this. They don't have to change anything if they don't want to. They can leave it just like they've had it this year. But if they want to change going forward, they now have the freedom to do that. And it's been well received by principals, ADs that we've met with and talked to.
I have a question. Mr. Atkins, I know you and I have talked extensively one-on-one about this, and I'm in support of this. However, I do have one concern, and maybe you've addressed it, I'm certainly that you've have with the athletic directors, but what is the checks and balances that keeps John Daniel from hiring Jim Bob, because me and Jim Bob were best buds, and I'm just paying him even though he doesn't show up, he doesn't do anything, because I know, I mean, we're giving them that freedom and they can do what they say, but I'm also not a fan of paying somebody for not doing the job.
Sure. That's still going to remain with the principal and the AD to make sure that whomever we're paying is doing the job. They have to do that now. That doesn't remove this. It just allows them to maybe get more helpers if they choose to. But if we're compensating someone, we expect them to be there doing the job.
So really, those are procedural changes. We have always had these positions budgeted for, even if they were not necessarily utilized, they were included within the budget. So this is budget neutral. It's just a way of, we're just procedurally making some changes there, giving the schools the flexibility to utilize their dollars in the manner that they see best.
And a lot of that was brought on by the coaches who, sports now is year-round, and they do have families and they do have children, and this does allow them to manage those responsibilities a little differently. And so we're going to see what happens, where it takes us, and if we need to make some adjustments along the way, we will.
Good job, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So when at the time, and I should have updated this, at the time when I was working on this slide, we didn't know health insurance premiums for the upcoming year. I can since come back and say to you that I was at a meeting last week and they told us to anticipate about 7% of a health insurance increase for employees. So I have not run those numbers. I did include in this budget a 5% mid-year increase, which would impact by $370,000. So those numbers are subject to change a little bit there, but we do have 5%. If it does come in at 7%, then I may have to come back to you later with a budget amendment for some reason to make those changes. I don't really want to make those changes yet until I know for certain, but they did tell us to anticipate somewhere around 7%. So some of the other big ticket items that are included in the budget, you heard Mr. Atkins speak earlier about the cost of buses. We just purchased, you guys approved buses just a few meetings ago, I believe, to the tune of $148,000 or $149,000. So we have 4 buses included within this budget, and I just rounded it up to $150,000. So there's $600,000 in this budget for the purchase of 4 buses. In addition to that, statewide, Tennessee Risk Management Trust has gone around to districts and said, hey, we're telling every district your property, auto, liability, work comp insurance, somewhere between 12 to 15% increase. So that's to the tune of about $120,000 additional dollars just for insurance. And then I've kept this slide in here in the past just as kind of as a reminder to the board that through the ESG program that we did several years ago, we have to continue to make a payment to Lawrence County government into the debt service fund for that. So we've got 2 payments that we make to pay back on the energy efficient school initiative loan of $277,000, and then a payment on the bond for the actual program itself of $850,000. So you can see there I put final payments, one in November of 2032, and one final payment in May of 2034. So those combined is a little more than $1.1 million. And then another item Mr. Atkins referred to earlier is the science adoption. We're looking to put some materials in our science teachers' hands this upcoming year. The adoption is in the spring of 2025. And so we've planned for that through some of these excess dollars, if you will, that we have received over the years from county government and things of that nature. So this part of the budget, we are requesting come in order to balance the budget, since it is a non-reoccurring expense coming from the district fund balance, a large portion of that. So this is kind of just a really small little snippet. Total revenues of $70.4 million, but then total expenses on the flip side of that is almost $72 million. So we are asking for a hit to the fund balance in order to balance the budget of that 1.4, almost $1.5 million in order to balance. But we want to utilize those dollars and make that science adoption in the spring of the year. I want to make sure that's clear, that it's,
And it will
we're
still
using fund balance in order to balance the budget
And it will
this
still
year.
fall in with the guidelines where we need to be.
Yeah. So outside of the budget is some capital outlay improvements that we wanted to bring to your attention. It's not necessarily within the general purpose budget, because we are wanting to utilize some of those fund balance dollars to do these projects. But this is not an exhaustive list, but we did put some items on here that have been discussed here in the office, and things that I know Mr. Atkins has probably shared out with you guys at some different times. So I won't go through the entire list there, but just know that all of these things would come back to you guys on an individual basis as before we were to move forward with anything for approvals. So we are recommending, it's about to the tune of around $2 million. Any questions on that? So that kind of concludes the general purpose budget. The rest of my slides are pretty short, I think. We also have the federal projects budget. It's really a continuation of personnel from this current budget. We are requesting 2 additional positions within this to provide some academic lead teachers. We have 4 positions now, is that right, Mr. Atkins? And we're looking at adding 2 more within our Title I budget. So you can see there each of the federal budgets that we have and the dollar amounts, and they're really continuation budgets. So I'll be happy to answer if you have any specific questions on those, but I won't go through those unless you wish. And then our extended school day budget, that budget's self-supporting for before and after school care at 5 of our schools. All 5 schools combined is $147,000. You can see there the schools and the budgets that they operate. You have Crockett, David Crockett, Lawrenceburg Public, New Prospect, Leoma, and Summertown Elementary.
What drives those differences?
Participation.
Yeah.
This is included, of course, in our budget, but the funds to operate are generated through,
They're self-supporting.
Right,
Yes, this is parents
and
paying tuitions to attend. Yes.
Right,
And we really, the schools really, we charge enough to meet payroll. Now, we have some schools that have higher participation, that they're able to kind of make a little bit more profit than some of the other schools. And so they do accumulate a little bit of a fund balance, but I'll use Mr. Mabry sitting here in the audience. He was really good with some of his dollars that he had there, that he contributed out of his program into the sensory playground there at the elementary school in order to help get that playground. So the schools are really good to help if they have some extra money like that to maybe do an upgrade to a playground or things of that nature.
That's very nice of him doing that, because those kids do enjoy the playground.
Right.
Much of their time is spent on that playground.
And you heard Kenlon's presentation earlier. This was just a slide kind of in addition to that. Her total budget's 5.6, almost $5.7 million, and it's based on 170 school feeding days. So just to kind of wrap up, I hope that we've been able to answer any questions that you have. We have tried to make this as student-centered as we possibly can, but at the same time take care of our people. Any questions?
I've got some comments.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to commend you for the great work that you have been doing to come up with this budget, working alongside Mr. Atkins. Both of you to be highly commended for doing this. We appreciate you. I also think we need to express appreciation to the county government. For years, they have been, I think the county government has been good to the education of Lawrence County. And then, just for your information, as we were looking at the salary schedules, my mind went back to 1976. Beginning teacher, I was one of them, $8,500.
In 76?
Yes. So we've really made progress, but time changes things, and it changes.
Yes, it does.
It's still not enough, though.
Sir?
Still not enough.
Oh, no.
And Mr. Dryden, I can beat that.
Yes. You're several years older than I am.
I'm
so-
a lot older. 1972, $6,450 annual salary.
Well,
And my wife and I both met about that. We saved one whole paycheck and lived on $6,400.
Wow.
Bought 2 new cars. So that just shows you how things have changed.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes. So I will say that I know Ms. Kaiser shared out to you guys probably a long time ago a Google folder with the budget workshop, she called it, and I think it had an agenda in it. I have since today added lots of documents, one being the presentation that we just made tonight. But within that, there is a document, and I won't go through it all, but I want you to be able to take some time and look at it. A lot of the first is kind of a rehash of things that was in the budget presentation. But if you scroll on down, and I know this is small on your screen, but this is every line item within the budgets. So you can see every line within the general purpose budget. And I'll scroll quickly, but scroll. There's 30-something pages of that general purpose budget there. So you can see here, total expenses 71.9. This is the 1.49 is what we're asking as a fund balance amount in order to balance the budget. And after doing so, outside, and this is what we're anticipating, 16.7 is what we're anticipating the fund balance to be. But keep in mind, we're also coming to you with an additional approximately $2 million worth of capital projects that we would also request to come out of that 16.7 million. And then on further down and within this document, these are the federal budgets that we have to submit to the states. You can take a look at any of those detail that you wish. Ms. Simpson's budget is in here. It's a lot of documents, sorry guys. There's Ms. Simpson's budget that she presented to you tonight of $5.69 million. It's sideways, I apologize for that, but that is the extended school day budgets for each individual school of $147,000. And then the last few pages of the document are the salary schedules. Your teacher salary schedules, your administrative salary schedules, your support staff, just all different groups' salary schedules. So I want you guys to know that all of that's there. And I'll share this back out, so it's kind of at the front of your email, front of your documents.
And I just want to, oh, go ahead, Mr. Stein.
Can I say one thing? Very impressive presentation on your budget. And I want to just congratulate you on your recent recognition. Tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Well, I don't really know how, other than, you know, the work of the school system employees, working with the board and county commission, and just being able to share the good things happening in Lawrence County. As I said in my statement, it's all a testament to the great people that we have, and I've said that since I became director, of going home, resting, relaxing, recovering, recharging, being a difference maker, being able to increase salaries and help our people, invest in our people. We have good people in Lawrence County. We have good kids in Lawrence County. We have a supportive board. I share that with folks, and people are amazed at the board and how I describe them. And then the county commission and their support of education. And so when I'm out speaking to folks at career fairs, I tell them your dollar goes further in Lawrence County. Your doors can remain unlocked. There's good things about Lawrence County. Come work with us. You may not make as much money as you will maybe in another county, but your dollar goes further. Peace of mind goes a long ways. And our folks in the South Central Core nominated me, and I was honored to be nominated. I thought that was the greatest accomplishment in this role, and I was really surprised when others voted for me. But I'm honored to serve Lawrence County and the trust that the board has put in me the last several years. And as I've said before, I'm going to wake up every morning and go as hard as I can for the school system. Very blessed to be here. So thank you.
Any further comments, questions? I will remind everybody, May 23rd is our next board meeting at 5:30. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.